The Harper farm sprawled across the rolling hills of Harper's Creek, a place where the sun rose over golden fields and set behind distant forests, leaving the land bathed in a soft amber glow. Most of the town saw only the quiet farm girls, the twins, Claire and Emma Harper, raised by parents whose hands were calloused from decades of labor, their hearts dedicated to teaching the girls resilience and discipline. Claire was soft-spoken, cautious, a young woman who preferred books and animals to confrontation. Emma, though equally quiet, carried herself differently, strong, precise, always observing. But nobody outside the Harper family knew that Emma's ordinary appearance hid a past that could rival the most elite soldiers. The trouble began on a seemingly ordinary Tuesday. Claire had risen before dawn, as she did every morning, and was in the barn brushing down the horses. The air smelled of hay and fresh earth, mixed with the faint scent of chicken feed and the lingering aroma of morning dew. Birds called from the trees, the farm alive with sound, yet there was a tension that Claire couldn't quite place. Perhaps it was instinct. Meanwhile, Emma had left early for a trip to the neighboring county, leaving Claire to tend the morning chores alone. Little did she know, the local troublemakers, teenage bullies who thrived on intimidation, had been watching the Harper twins for weeks. They had singled out Claire, believing her to be Emma, the supposedly feisty twin they had heard rumors about. Misjudging her meant they were about to make a monumental mistake. "Hey, farm girl, heard you think you can handle yourself," a voice sneered as they approached the barn. Laughter echoed across the field, cruel and confident. Claire froze for a heartbeat, the barn door framing their silhouettes. The first bully stepped forward, fists raised, sure of his advantage. Claire's eyes narrowed. For a moment, she seemed like any frightened girl, but then instinct took over. Her movements were fluid, precise, and devastatingly effective. Within seconds, the first attacker stumbled backward, landing in a pile of hay, dazed. The others hesitated, disbelief on their faces, their mockery faltering. "Wrong twin," Claire said softly, her voice calm yet chillingly firm. "You should have stayed home today." The bullies' arrogance turned to panic. Every movement Claire made was calculated, she deflected, blocked, and subdued with ease. Her punches were strategic, her balance flawless, her knowledge of leverage and angles uncanny. One by one, the group fell back, unable to comprehend the sheer force of skill before them. Within moments, Claire was standing alone amidst scattered hay, dust clinging to her clothes, her breathing steady. By afternoon, news of the incident had spread like wildfire. Every neighbor, shopkeeper, and passerby whispered of the farm girl who could fight like a soldier. Some said she had been trained overseas, others whispered of secret military history. Few understood the truth. Emma Harper had walked dangerous terrain, faced enemies in life or death situations, and survived. Claire had only scratched the surface of her sister's legacy, yet even that was enough to terrify the town's bullies. Flashbacks flickered in Claire's mind as she walked back toward the farmhouse. She remembered years ago, sitting across from Emma while she recounted pieces of missions in distant lands, covert operations, and encounters with enemies whose intent was lethal. The Harper parents had shielded her from most of the details, but enough remained to hint at Emma's extraordinary past. Now, after seeing her in action, Claire understood why her sister had always been calm, precise, and unshakable. Emma returned later that day, parking her truck silently at the edge of the property. She observed the barn and its surroundings, noting the aftermath of the confrontation, the bullies humiliated, the barn disheveled, and Claire standing with an unexpected confidence. Emma didn't smile. Instead, she gave a brief nod, approval of her sister's instinctive skill. The incident should have marked the end of the threat, but the bullies' humiliation ignited something worse, revenge. They underestimated the Harper property. Emma had already fortified it without anyone noticing. Hidden cameras disguised as tools, motion sensors, silent alarms, and cleverly positioned obstacles turned the farm into a fortress. Each step an intruder might take could trigger a response, one calculated to immobilize without serious harm, or worse if necessary. Even the town began to whisper. Harper's Creek had never seen the twins like this. Claire, once cautious and timid, began to display a confidence that mirrored her sister's controlled authority. But as the days passed, Emma knew that the next confrontation would be different. These were not ordinary teenagers anymore, they were desperate, dangerous, and willing to escalate. One stormy night, the bullies attempted to strike again. The rain fell in sheets, lightning illuminating the rolling fields and distant woods. They crept through the soaked terrain, intending to intimidate and damage property. But as soon as they stepped into the barn, they were met with precision and skill beyond their comprehension. Emma had anticipated their every movement. Within seconds, the intruders were disarmed, restrained, and immobilized. By the time the sheriff arrived, the bullies were left shaken, humiliated, and unable to explain the events that had transpired. The town's perception shifted instantly. Harper's Creek had witnessed the extraordinary. Emma Harper, a woman whose Delta Force training was now a living shield, had protected her family with calm, methodical efficiency. Claire had learned, adapted, and begun to develop the instincts necessary to survive, and to fight. By dawn, the storm passed, leaving the farm bathed in soft golden light. The twins stood together on the porch, surveying the land they had fought to protect. Their bond had strengthened, their shared strength was now visible to the world. The quiet farm girl image had vanished, replaced with a legend of courage and skill. Even as life seemed to return to normal, Emma knew the past could re-emerge, that threats could come from unexpected corners. But for now, Harper's Creek was safe, and the twins had proven that underestimating them came at a steep price. And somewhere in the whispering wind, a question lingered: who would dare challenge the Harper twins next? Perfect. Here's part 2, roughly 2,500 words, continuing the story from part 1 with escalating tension, deeper flashbacks of Emma's Delta Force past, and Claire's growth into a confident defend. The sun rose slowly over Harper's Creek, spilling pale gold across the fields, but peace had not yet returned to the Harper farm. The barn incident had shaken the town, and the bullies' humiliation had planted a seed of vengeance that would not fade easily. Claire Harper awoke before dawn, restless and uneasy. She could still feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins from the night she had defended herself. Pride battled with fear, the pride of surviving, of moving instinctively, and fear of the danger that had only just revealed itself. Emma returned later that morning, driving up the dirt road with her usual quiet authority. Her eyes scanned the horizon, taking in the landscape as if reading it for threats. She didn't speak at first, merely observing, as though the stormy weather and distant treetops carried warnings only she could decipher. "Claire," Emma said finally, her voice low and deliberate. "You did well in the barn. But you need to understand that what we faced was just the beginning. Those bullies are reckless, but they're predictable. We can't let them learn from their mistakes." Claire nodded. "I want to learn, Emma. I want to be ready if this happens again." Emma smiled faintly. "Good. Because it will." The day was spent preparing. The twins moved through the farm with heightened awareness, performing everyday chores while simultaneously preparing for potential attacks. Emma taught Claire to anticipate movement, recognize threats before they became immediate, and to turn ordinary farm tools into defensive instruments. They reinforced entry points, checked motion sensors, and even reconfigured the barn layout to create natural choke points that would give them an advantage in any confrontation. Claire was beginning to understand what made Emma extraordinary. It wasn't just her physical prowess, it was the complete mastery of awareness, strategy, and precision. Every move Emma made was deliberate, measured, and calculated to protect without unnecessary risk. Claire began to mirror her sister, moving with more confidence, more instinct, and a growing sense of self-assurance. By nightfall, a storm rolled in, heavy and ominous. Rain pelted the fields, lightning illuminated the sky in jagged flashes, and thunder rumbled through the hills like distant cannons. The twins remained vigilant, watching from the farmhouse windows, ears attuned to every sound. They had learned to read the environment, to notice the slightest disturbance in the wind, the faintest movement in the brush. That night, the bullies returned. Their approach was calculated this time, a coordinated effort through the bordering woods. But Emma and Claire were ready. Motion sensors had detected their presence long before they reached the barn, triggering subtle alarms and strategically timed lights to disorient them. Emma moved first, her body flowing with lethal grace. Each strike, block, and maneuver was executed with precision born of countless missions in dangerous territories. Claire followed closely, her movements less refined but growing sharper with each passing moment. They neutralized each intruder with minimal force, disabling them and restraining them in positions that prevented escape. The bullies' arrogance evaporated under the calm, efficient skill of the twins. By dawn, the local sheriff arrived at the scene, stunned at the sight. I've never seen anything like this, he said, trying to process the restrained, disoriented group before him. You girls, how did you manage this? Emma simply replied, we protected our home. Her tone was calm, yet it carried an authority that silenced any further questions. The event spread through Harper's Creek like wildfire. No longer were the twins considered ordinary farm girls. Rumors swirled, stories amplified by fear and admiration. Some said Emma had been trained by government agencies overseas, others claimed she had survived combat situations that few could imagine. Claire, once timid, had begun to discover her own courage and resilience. Her role in the confrontation had not gone unnoticed, and she felt a growing confidence in herself that she had never experienced before. But the bullies were far from finished. Humiliated and desperate, they sought reinforcements, recruiting strangers from nearby towns who were unaware of what they were stepping into. Emma anticipated their moves, tracking communications, intercepting messages, and subtly manipulating circumstances to ensure the farm remained protected. Her military training allowed her to predict patterns and act preemptively, turning the entire farm into a strategic advantage. As days passed, the twins became local legends. Neighbors spoke of their bravery in hushed tones, teenagers whispered stories of their skills, and adults nodded respectfully when they passed the Harper farm. Claire was no longer merely the quieter twin, she had grown into someone capable, vigilant, and ready to defend what she loved. Emma's reputation had transformed the perception of the farm from a peaceful homestead into a symbol of protection and resilience. Yet one evening, a new threat appeared. A stranger, tall and composed, moved along the tree line, observing the Harper property with professional precision. Unlike the bullies, this figure had training, discipline, and the ability to analyze threats with a tactical eye. Emma sensed immediately that this was not a random trespasser. She recognized the signs of someone who had combat experience, each step measured, each pause deliberate. Claire, peering through the rain-soaked window, whispered, "Who is that?" Emma's gaze sharpened. "Someone who thinks they can test us. And tonight, we will see just how ready we are." The storm's intensity mirrored the tension in the air. Rain hammered the fields, lightning carved the sky, and the twins readied themselves. Every trap was checked, every defensive measure reinforced. The intruder circled the farm, assessing, calculating, attempting to find a weakness. But Harper's Creek had a hidden advantage. Emma Harper's unmatched skill, honed in far more dangerous situations than any small-town threat could offer. Flashbacks of overseas missions flickered in Emma's mind, stealth infiltration, rescue operations, and covert confrontations where failure meant death. Every lesson from those missions was now a tool for protecting her home and her family. Claire watched, absorbing every movement, every strategic choice, understanding the rhythm of anticipation, the art of patience, and the balance of restraint and action. Hours passed. Rain blurred vision, darkness concealed movement, yet the twins remained vigilant. The stranger tested them, probing defenses, but Emma anticipated every action, and Claire responded instinctively, her confidence growing with each successful maneuver. Together, they became a seamless team, a unit forged in trust and necessity. Finally, the intruder attempted to escape into the surrounding woods. Emma and Claire had predicted this. Using a combination of signals, timing, and terrain, they cornered the figure at the edge of the property. Emma stepped forward, her silhouette illuminated by lightning, her presence commanding and resolute. "This ends now," she said, her voice unwavering. "Leave, or face consequences you cannot survive." The intruder froze, calculating options. The twins' skill, precision, and calm authority were overwhelming. Realizing escape was impossible, the figure reluctantly retreated into the shadows, disappearing from the farm's site. As the storm subsided, Claire felt a deep sense of accomplishment. She had faced fear alongside Emma, survived, and learned to trust her instincts. She was no longer the timid twin. She had become a defender, a partner, and an integral part of Harper's protective force. The morning sun revealed the aftermath, fields glistening with rain, barns standing resilient, and the twins poised, victorious, and vigilant. Harper's Creek would never see them the same way again. Emma's past had shaped not just her life but the safety and respect of the entire town. Claire had transformed, stepping into her own power, ready to face whatever came next. But even as peace returned, Emma knew one truth: danger was never truly gone. It only awaited opportunity. And Harper's Creek, for all its quiet charm, had become a place where legends walked unnoticed among ordinary fields and barns. The stage was set for the ultimate confrontation, the one that would test everything Emma and Claire had prepared for: their courage, skill, and unbreakable bond. The storm had grown violent, pounding Harper's Creek with relentless sheets of rain, wind tearing across the fields as if testing the farm itself. Inside the farmhouse, Claire and Emma moved silently, preparing for a threat they both knew was coming. Every detail had been checked, every trap inspected, every possible approach accounted for. This was no ordinary attack. Emma's instincts told her this was professional, trained, and deadly. Claire, now more confident than ever, felt a mixture of fear and resolve. She had learned so much from her sister: how to anticipate, how to stay calm, how to fight with precision, but tonight would be the ultimate test. Emma watched her quietly, noting her stance, her awareness, the subtle shift of tension in her shoulders. "You're ready," Emma said softly. "Remember everything. Watch, anticipate, move deliberately. We don't panic. We control the fight." The first signs of the intruder appeared on the horizon, a shadow moving with calculated steps through the rain-soaked fields. This was different from the bullies, different from anyone they had faced. Each step was measured, controlled, the body poised and balanced, trained. Emma immediately recognized the skill, the training. This was someone who had been taught to survive in extreme conditions, to anticipate and adapt. The confrontation began at the edge of the barnyard. Emma moved like a predator, silent, precise, each action executed with flawless timing. Claire followed closely, her own movements growing sharper and more instinctive with every second. The intruder attempted a feint, testing their reactions, but Emma and Claire anticipated, countered, and forced him back. Every step had a purpose, every strike was calculated. Lightning illuminated the fields, revealing the tense standoff. Emma's mind flickered with memories: missions deep in hostile territories, rescue operations where failure was not an option, encounters with enemies who had no mercy. Every lesson she had learned overseas was now being applied in her own backyard, to protect her family and her home. Hours passed. The rain blurred vision, the darkness concealed movement, but neither Emma nor Claire wavered. The intruder attempted to outmaneuver them, but the twins moved as one, a perfectly synchronized unit. Claire's confidence had blossomed. She was no longer a bystander but an active defender, matching her sister's precision with instinct and courage. At one point, the intruder managed to flank them, taking advantage of the uneven terrain near the wooded edge of the property. Emma, anticipating the move, signaled to Claire. With silent coordination, they maneuvered to create a trap, forcing the intruder into a narrow path lined with hay bales and fences. Every step he took was anticipated, every attempt at evasion met with calculated resistance. Finally, the intruder made a desperate dash for the woods, seeking to escape. Emma and Claire had prepared for this scenario. Using a combination of stealth, timing, and terrain advantage, they intercepted him. Emma stepped forward, her silhouette framed by lightning, commanding and unflinching. "This ends now," Emma said, her voice carrying authority and deadly calm. "Leave, or face consequences you cannot survive." The intruder hesitated, calculating, then slowly realized the futility of escape. The twins' coordination, skill, and calm authority were overwhelming. Without a word, he retreated into the shadows, disappearing into the woods. The storm began to subside, leaving the farm bathed in the soft light of early dawn. Claire exhaled, relief and triumph mingling in her chest. She had faced fear, danger, and skillful opposition, and had emerged stronger. She was no longer merely the cautious twin, she was a protector in her own right, capable of moving, thinking, and acting under pressure. Emma placed a hand on her sister's shoulder, her expression a mixture of pride and reassurance. "You did well," she said. "Tonight proved you're ready, not just to survive, but to fight, to protect, and to stand beside me." The storm cleared, leaving the Harper farm drenched but intact. Fields shimmered with rain, the barns stood resilient, and the twins were poised, vigilant, and triumphant. Harper's Creek would never see them the same way again. Emma's legacy as a Delta Force operative had protected the town, and Claire had stepped fully into her own power, ready to face any threat alongside her sister. The town slowly began to awaken. Neighbors whispered about the twins' bravery, teenagers told stories of their skill, and adults nodded respectfully. Harper's Creek had discovered that appearances could be deceiving, that quiet farm girls could be legends in their own right. The Harper farm was no longer merely a home, it was a fortress, a symbol of resilience, and a testament to courage. The twins resumed their morning routine, moving through the fields with purpose. Every chore, every step, was carried out with precision and calm. They had endured the storm and the threat it had brought. They had proven that strength could emerge from preparation, courage, and unity. Emma's past, once hidden, had become a shield for the future. Claire's present had become proof that ordinary people could rise to extraordinary challenges when guided by experience and determination. Yet, even in the calm, Emma remained vigilant. Danger was never gone, it only waited. Harper's Creek had been tested and had survived, but the Harper twins knew that vigilance and preparation were lifelong practices. The farm was safe, for now. The family was safe. In the legend of the Harper twins, Emma, the Delta Force veteran, and Claire, the determined defender, was firmly established. As the sun rose higher, Emma and Claire stood together on the porch, watching the golden fields glisten with the aftermath of the storm. They were united, stronger than ever, bound by experience, courage, and the unspoken understanding that they would protect each other and their home at any cost. And so, Harper's Creek had witnessed a story of courage, skill, and unbreakable bonds. The quiet farm girls had become legends, defenders of their land, their family, and the values they cherished. Their tale was one of bravery, of preparation meeting opportunity, and of ordinary people rising to meet extraordinary challenges. So tell me, viewers, from which part of the country are you watching this video? Subscribe channel, like and share. Thank you.